So good morning, everybody. It's always great to be the last one. So I know what is the time allocated to me. So, so the topic of today is going to be a little bit, in a way, aligned to what has been discussed before. It is about obviously continuing education, but it's got a spatial focus on some of the current trends and macro trends, and it's a little bit more specific for the financial industry. So it goes a little bit more in depth about the tools that are being used within the financial industry. Although obviously a lot of those methodologies, a lot of those assumptions apply, I think, a little bit more in general for the wider education. So today we're obviously going through an endless, an endless amount of change, and there is a continuous becoming of state of things, right? If you think about it, most of the important technologies that are going to be used 30 or even 20 years from now have not been really discovered yet. And even for the technologies that are discovered, there is a continuous cycle of obsolescence that makes it very much irrelevant, everything that we learn today. So we constantly need to adapt ourselves, and we constantly, as education providers, we need to adapt our education methods and learning tools, to fit the new requirements, to fit the new technologies. So, if you look at the macro trends and what is really happening out there, you could, when it comes to education, you could more or less define it in three bigger macro trends, being screening. So, there is an endless amount of screens in front of us. Today, up to 5 billion screens are in front of us every day. And that is creating the need of a universal library to have a place where to store all the information. So again, if you look at the way that education is being provided, before it used to be through books, it used to be very fragmented. Now it's always more centralized, and it's obviously more in the cloud and it's dispersed, but it's increasingly, if you want, accessible from anybody and ubiquitous at any time. Also, there is a change of the state of things when it comes to the flowing. So the development of information storage and flows has evolved from files to web browsers to an increasingly amount of online streaming, which is again changing the patterns, changing how we learn and how we provide information to students. Last but not least, AI is completely changing the way that we need to, we need to operate in the future, and in some way also the learning itself. So you can think of some of the recent advancements. And especially Google, something that I find very fascinating is the new AlphaZero technology that was developed from Google that has already completely, if you want, evolved the gaming industry. There was recently an AlphaZero release for chess that is completely redesigned, if you want, how computers play chess. And it's not anymore about learning for machines, but it's actually, it's not anymore about developing code for machines, but it's developing how machines can learn, and in a way, in very, very brief amount of times, actually really evolve a whole game itself. So, the latest version of AlphaZero was able to completely redefine how computers play chess within 4 hours' time, which is truly outstanding. So if you want, you could almost categorize how humans compete or how humans relate to AI in 4 different ways. So there are jobs that human can do better than robots. There are jobs that human can do, but robot can do better. You can think of manufacturing, but more recently even driving is increasingly becoming one of those. There are jobs that human cannot do, but machines can do. And obviously we have a lot of those specifically in the analytics. And there is a lot of jobs actually that humans didn't know how to do, and now machines are redefining. You can think of algorithms and search engines. So really, when it comes to learning and how you go through education today, you have to think of what are those roles that are most likely to be still relevant tomorrow. And most of those are actually heavily influenced from creativity. So creativity becomes, something very important for us to focus on, already very early in our not only careers, but actually in our lifetime. And even through university, you have to think of what are those jobs that relate more with creativity and how do we apply creativity to be more successful in the future. So, the ones that I was showing before were, if you want, general trends that apply to today, learning and education. But underlying those trends, there are some macro trends that are really defining how things are evolving. So you can think of machine learning. Again, it's how the capability of algorithms and software to learn and adapt to new experience. Natural language processing is the ability of algorithms and softwares to structure and understand different languages and different text. Equally, knowledge representation it's how we represent knowledge in a way that computers can use in computation and analytical input. And last but not least, test analytics. So it's how we analyze text to discover patterns and help us making decisions. So, I'm not sure how many of you have heard about Refinitiv. Our company is evolved through a number of different changes as well. It's changes not only in how we learn, but also in how we represent ourselves. So we're a 160 years old company, started as Reuters, and evolved through an important acquisition in 2008 to Thomson Reuters, and only recently became Refinitiv through an acquisition of Blackstone, which is a big private equity house. Throughout our history, and specifically actually more in our more recent history, we've adapted technology to help our users and education, if you want, industry in general, to learn and make progresses and really helps to use our tools to be more effective. Recently, we've increasingly, if you want, leverage on AI and NPL and NLP to make some significant progresses in the industry. What we're going to do in the next few slides is to show how those recent evolutions are helping our users, but are equally helping students and the educational industry to leverage on some very, I think unique tools. So just 3 recent examples to start with. NLP is really an area that we've been investing a lot, and it's about how do we tag information and test analytics to data mine and to help making a meaningful observation from unstructured data. We're going to see some concrete user cases after this. But equally within the credit risk, we're using StarMine, which is a model that helps actually predict company difficulties by using historical patterns and historical information, which is quite unique. And again, we're going to show that a little bit more in depth in a second. Last but not least, and again, we are ultimately a company that focuses on providing the financial industry with information and tools, is automated bond yields. Is how do we use machine learning to actually populate bond yield curves and make sure that there is completeness in information that sometimes is not there simply because there is not enough tradable data within the bonds OTC markets. So what some of those observations and work has produced is actually smarter products to help our users and again the education industry to be more effective and to be able to get access to final data in a quicker way. So some concrete user cases. Icon Digest is a personalized delivery mechanism that through AI drives actually information that is specifically designed for user sets. So if you are working in a specific industry or in a specific market, sometimes it's easy for you to find information to those markets, but there is a lot of unstructured and unrelated data that doesn't necessarily come immediately from those markets that might be meaningful for you. And what we do, we actually provide algorithms that allow you to access the data without you even almost defining what the data is. Just simply after observing patterns and analyzing how user consumption behaviors happen from similar users. Another very interesting use case is to use machine learning and test analysis to analyze data in real time and quantify key themes, starting from social media. So here we analyze over 800 sources and can tell you actually how a specific financial instrument, but also a cryptocurrency is likely to evolve and likely to progress, just by observing what is being published in the news and what is happening in the real-time market. So these are actually extremely powerful, and it helps actually both financial market operators, but equally also students to understand trends and possibly also forecast outcomes. Another very interesting consequence of our solutions is the ability to forecast trends using large amounts of data within the commodities industry. So here what we do is to use machine learning and satellite imagery, for instance, to automate the forecast of agricultural prices, right? So we observe what is happening in the markets, but equally we observe satellite images to be able to tell for specific agricultural goods how the next crops are likely to yield. And we actually do the same also within the oil and gas industry, which is obviously very important for the Kazakhstan economy, and many other industries. So again, this gives anybody that is interested to those markets the ability to actually forecast relatively accurately what is likely to happen in the future. And us as students gives us use cases of how the industry is likely to evolve in the future, and what are some of the tools capable of doing today already using leveraging large amounts of data. Last but not least, we use a big data solution, so permanent ID and intelligent tagging, to surface news and information in Icon. Icon is our flagship product, so we're actually able to leverage on different data sets and tell our users how information relates to each other, and really help making decisions of actually different type of industries. So one of those tools also is able to mitigate, if you want, financial crime risk by working on large amounts of data. Tagging and clustering data is able to spot, if you want, potential financial risk. Starmine, we mentioned that before, is a comprehensive tool that is developed mainly for the asset management industry, but really for anybody looking at company data. It can help model and forecast potential changes in the financial market by just looking at past analytical data, but also at all real-time financial data. So there is, again, further use cases are intelligent tagging, where through the structuring of unstructured data and the automatic tagging of information, we're able to data mine and derive meanings from big data. Again, similar along the same use cases. How do we provide identifiers and organize data to represent relationship in data that is not really directly relating and establish links between those data sets. So last but not least is we provide smarter analytics to transform unstructured and real-time news and connect that to third-party services and to transform that into machine-readable news. The idea there is that there is a lot of machines today that need to consume data to make decisions, and we can provide that as a holistic input and make sure that machines can make sense of data without actually companies needing to redefine the code on how to interpret the data itself. So, strategic goals of academic institutions, by and large, are to increase attractiveness and participation for students, professors, and partners. They also want to support the development of research activities, and last but not least, implement innovations in education. So, what we try to do and we strive to do is to provide tools also to the education sector and to universities to do that in a more systematic ways. So what we have done already actually is to empower over 400 universities in the world and some of the most renowned names like London Stock Exchange, Harvard, LBS, with tools and labs to actually do everything that I was showing before and more. So again, Refinitiv is a global provider of information, but is increasingly also a provider of tools to analyze that information, be able to connect it, and help actually students make use of that. So some of the more concrete examples in Russia, where I'm based currently, is the Plekhanov Russian University of Economics, where we established newly a lab, an ICON lab, and the Moscow State University of International Relations. Equally, we're structuring a partnership through the AIFC, where we actually, together with the AIFC, provide mini laboratories in Kazakhstan. We do that today already in 9 universities in the country. And those are some of the recent examples. So that's just a very brief overview, and what we believe are some of the trends, the underlying market trends that are likely to reshape the education industry, and some of the use cases, what we're actually doing to help, both the educational institutions and obviously, and the financial markets altogether, to make sense of those trends and make more accurate decisions. Thank you.